Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King Dia, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet, Bloodsport, City of Steel, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. Over the past several months or so, we've gotten a very strong consensus from the gaming community on YouTube that Splatoon 3 was not going to be a big deal. There was this overwhelming narrative that the game was identical to the first two games, that it wasn't exciting, that it wasn't a big deal. I've heard several people come out and say this, from people like Darkside Phil to Oni Plays. Countless YouTubers have released this narrative saying that I do not care about Splatoon 3. And for a moment there, I really wondered whether this narrative would bleed over into mainstream sales or affect critic scores in some way or affect the player base. But honestly, it hasn't at all. The game seems to be a monumental success. It's going to be one of the most successful titles of this year, and it is going to be another step forward in Splatoon being one of the most popular Nintendo IPs out there. But what we've seen very consistently since 2014, almost a decade ago, is that YouTubers in the gaming community are desperate to write off and ignore Splatoon by any means necessary. All right, this is the same gaming community who will hype up every new PlayStation announcement, every new Steam port, every indie game. But when it comes to a legitimately new and exciting IP from Nintendo, one that shatters all expectations and kind of established itself right out of the gate as one of their big heavy hitting RPs, a juggernaut of a franchise. Nah, I don't care about that. It's not my thing. It's not a big deal. Splatoon is just for kids, man. Only the Japanese like it. I'm a fucking racist. That's kind of the consensus I've heard from the community, is just this notion that Splatoon 3 is not innovative enough, it's not good enough, it's not creative enough to be considered a juggernaut IP. But meanwhile, these same people are hyping up shit like the Steam Deck, which is functionally worthless, stuff like Multiversus, Fall Guys, Destiny. A lot of those people were shilling Destiny back in the day. People like Max Dude will shill Street Fighter 5, right? Street Fighter 5 and 6, right? You people pretending that Bridget is trans. You have all these YouTubers who are kind of ignoring the elephant in the room, in that Splatoon is a big deal. But because they can't make money off of it, because it's not the sort of IP that they can really profit off of, because it is entirely online, and if they played online, they would get stopped pretty quickly. They would get exposed for being casuals pretty quickly. They want to ignore it, they want to write it off, and they want to say they would prefer to see another IP. F-Zero is the big example right now, but 5 years ago, it was Star Fox, right? It's the same thing we've seen over and over and over again. No matter what Nintendo gives us, no matter what they release, you're going to see these people bitch and complain. Right? These same people ignored Legends Arceus. They ignored Nintendo Switch Sports. They ignored Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And now they're ignoring Splatoon 3. And they're going to ignore, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and whatever else Nintendo puts out this year, while hyping up Bayonetta 3, which, by the way, does look legitimately terrible. It's remarkable to see what these people will do to try and justify their existence. They are seriously going to try and tell us that there's something wrong with Splatoon, that it's not that big of a deal, but in reality, what they say and what they do does not affect the market at all. And I think that's the big thing to take away from this, is that despite the overwhelming consensus among the community that Splatoon 3 was not a hype announcement, the game is still really popular. It's still being played to this day. It's one of those things I want to come home and do is just sit and play Splatoon. But I'm doing so much other stuff. I can't even play as much as I want. But when I do get to play, it's one of the greatest one of the most satisfying, like exhilarating experiences I've had with a video game all year. Like fuck Titanfall 2, fuck Destiny, fuck Call of Duty, fuck Battlefield, fuck Halo. Splatoon is like basically superior to all these franchises, and we're kind of in this position where nobody really wants to admit it. Like again, it's kind of like with the Switch thing where people don't want to admit that that Nintendo won the console war. Right, like that there's no recovery for PlayStation or Xbox. Like they're still kind of in that denial phase. They're still trying to form like the Axis powers of like Nintendo, of PlayStation, Steam, and Xbox to try and take down like the Nintendo alliance. Right, like it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I don't understand the obsession to try and downplay every major Nintendo game in this way. And it has been essentially most of them this year, other than like Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But that game was so well made, it's very difficult to ignore. Very similar to Mario 3D World, which I think is a big reason why it's so popular. But like generally speaking, it is becoming absurd the links that people will go to try and pretend that like Nintendo doesn't make games like they used to. They're not as good as the competition. What games from the competition are you playing that's better than the average Nintendo game? I would really, really like to know. And if you say Elden Ring, you're delusional. If you say like The Last of Us Part 1 remastered, you're delusional. If you say like God of War Ragnarok, you're delusional. God of War is so irrelevant. It's on sale PC right now, and I will never buy it. That's how little I respect, God of War 2018, God of War like 2022, like God of War Ragnarok, like Thor Ragnarok the video game, like a literal MCU tier like naming there. Oh man, what's the most generic word in the Norse mythology? Oh, we'll just say Ragnarok. Like fucking bullshit. I can't believe more people aren't making fun of that lack of originality. Like, come the fuck on. Like, what are you gonna have like Stan Lee cameo? Like, are you gonna have like Pro ZD like and Stan Lee get into a fight? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from God of War Ragnarok. Frankly, I don't care. I expect it to be woke garbage like The Last of Us Part 2. I expect like some more nonsense like that. It's not going to compete with Splatoon 3. Like Elden Ring can't compete with Splatoon 3. Like Elden Ring is a once like in a lightning in a bottle, never going to be replicated. Whereas like Splatoon 3 is always consistent. Splatoon as a franchise is always going to consistently sell like 10 million units at least. We're not sure exactly where Splatoon 3 is going to go from here. We don't have like hard numbers on that. My prediction has always been that it's going to be over 15 million units sold. So theoretically, it's possible to outsell Elden Ring. I don't want to like hedge bets on that, at least at this stage, but I do think it's very possible. I do think Elden Ring just doesn't have like the mainstream appeal that Splatoon like universally does. Like the only reason like Splatoon doesn't have the same hype as Elden Ring is because it's a Nintendo product, and the industry is desperate to downplay every Nintendo product that gets made.